And no, Mrs. Demler, I'm not an attorney, but believe me, I know this is a fact. You can tell us the ballpark figure, or actually the exact number of those documents. That is not a breach of confidentiality. That does not release any information about those confidential documents. But we're asking, in your legal opinion, as the first responder in this Public Records Act request, and in your response to Mr. Borenstein, you said there were confidential documents. So what does that mean? That's what we're asking. Are we going to be, hiring an attorney to spend 12 hours looking through 400 documents? Or are we talking about 2 documents and the person's done in less than a billable hour?
Closed session discussion.
Okay, so we're not going to get this information tonight.
Get the information.
Here. We're not going to get it here in open session, where we are entitled to get it.
What is the legal potential for harm to the district for you revealing that information in public session right now?
First of all, I don't know how many documents there are. I don't know ballpark how many there are. I think there are less than 100.
Total or privileged?
Total. There's also the issue of what was provided to me by specific board members. That needs to be discussed in closed session as well.
What is the threat to, if you gave an estimation less than, this is how I do it with my kids in determining how many cookies they've eaten and things like that. If we did less than 10 or something, what is the legal ramification, or what is your concern with revealing that in open session? I'm not asking to.
My concern is
to
keep, my concern is to keep Violet the closed session privilege, and I don't want to go down the road of revealing in open session things that could conceivably lead to a waiver of the privilege. I'm concerned that documents were provided already that was outside the purview of the Board of Education waiving that privilege. So I've got to fulfill my ethical obligation and to try to keep as close, try to honor the closed session privilege and honor the privileges that the board maintains. That being the case, if we are going to be having a discussion about transparency and openness, we should have a discussion about waiving privileges, and we should have that in closed session.
As I understood, so this board would have the right to waive the privilege right now of you not revealing the number of documents.
No, they couldn't. The board would have to go into closed session to discuss that privilege waiver.
Well, truly, we could sit here tonight and waive all confidentiality. We could just move to release all documents sight unseen as well, Mr. Rowland. But
it hasn't been agendized.
That's not what we're interested in.
It hasn't been agendized.
What I'm interested in, and this is why I'm going back to my motion so we can maybe bring to closures. I'm actually interested in the next step, is how we resolve this. I don't want to sit tonight and just spin our wheels and have it come back and come back and come back. What I would like to do is bring this to closure in a way that is satisfactory to the public, that demonstrates that we truly want to provide what it is we're required to provide, that we're not being reluctant, that we're not, acting from an ultra-conservative approach to hiding the documents. As Mr. Lawrence said, we're now supposed to be erring more on the side. Most things are public records that we do and conversations. So I'm suggesting once again that my solution, I hope, and I hope I get support on this, is that we go to an outside counsel, and Mrs. Mayo has amended that to say that having the board approve it. Oh, all right, she withdraws her amendment. Is that what I'm seeking is a resolution. What I'm seeking is a resolution. I don't want to leave here, I wish we could have left here 15 minutes ago, I'm sure we all do, but that I don't want to leave here without this concept that we're actually taking action, and that we're taking action that's legally responsible and responsive to the public. And my suggestion here is that the best way to be responsive is an unfortunate one. It's unfortunate that we are dealing with the 5 district administrators' contracts still a year after these things started. But that in order to be legally responsible, we have to separate ourselves from the first opinion and go to somebody who has no vested interest in any of this. And then we can proceed to have an attorney look at those documents, decide using those same legal guidelines, which are confidential, and what the liability is for release of those, or the harm or the damages to an individual. You know, if there's
Or you could have a
damage to the
judge look at
district. Pardon me?
Or you could have a judge look at
We
it.
could have a judge look at it, but I've suggested we go to an outside attorney once again for the last time, I hope, and actually have these reviewed and actually have them deemed confidential and then actually have a time in closed session if confidential documents are identified using the standard legal, you know, which is around are there damages to the district or the individual, using that parameter, and then we as a board can look at those documents and make a determination, document at a time if we need to, on whether or not we want to release those, you know, because think that the greater good is to have the public access to it, or the greater harm is to, you know.
Madam President?
And
Madam President? I'm curious why you don't want to engage Namita Brown, Diane Friedman Marshall, or Roy Combs, because we have already used this firm and these attorneys for this review.
We've already used two of them for other matters around here. I'm truly looking for someone who is, you know, I've used a different person for a different leg of this. We're on the third leg now.
So is it that you were dissatisfied with their work, or
I
believe
want
that they have a
somebody who's
conflict of interest?
totally disengaged, who for the first time is just coming in. Just what I did with, when I went for the contract revision, went for somebody who has not had his hands on this. When I went with Namita Brown, that was our first go-around. When I went for the contract revision, I made a decision that it was better to go to somebody who has a different step in this. So going to the third step in this, I see it as a part 3, is go to a different attorney, which is what the practice has been so far in this. And I hope this third part is the last part.
Well, why can't we stay then, if we've been within the same firm, could you just choose somebody within that firm?
Well, we might end up, Mrs. Oaks and I could end up selecting somebody, but I'm suggesting that I would not want to go back. And again, that's why I'm asking it be our decision, and either you trust our judgment or you don't, I guess. And so at this point, what I'd like to do, so we can move on, is I'm suggesting this as a way to provide the board some reassurance to, you know, remove Mr. Rowland from any concerns here and to address the Public Records Act request. And
Ms. Hanson, what you're suggesting is hiring counsel without board approval who does not have a fiduciary obligation to the school district to provide counsel regarding the waiver of privileges and the disclosure of documents. I would respectfully submit to you that that's imprudent. That's like just like hiring some random attorney that doesn't have your interests at heart.
well, thank you, Mr. Rowland, but it is sometimes a
The
fresh attitude.
Exactly, but the attorney needs to have a fiduciary obligation to the school district and the Board of Education in order to make this type of decision.
is there any reason that the board president and vice president could not first review the documents in their entirety? Because I don't believe that any board member has done so, and then make a determination if outside counsel is required.
That's a review that should be taking place by the entire board.
Or outside counsel looking through in a preliminary look. So Mr. Rowland's expressed his viewpoint. I would ask that we take a vote on this item because I'd really like to bring it to closure. I'd really like to leave this meeting with some concept that we are going to bring it to closure and be responsive. So I'm going to call for the vote.
Just a minute.
At
I
this
really
time.
like
I'm sorry, Mrs.
I like what
Miller.
Mr. Lawrence said, though. I think that was.
I'm going to call for the vote on this, and if you well, that's America for you.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
America. Darn.
That's the way it works. I have no idea when I put things forward if I'm ever, you know, I've lived 4-1 most of my time, so, you know, that's my hope. My hope is that you support our bringing this darn thing to closure in a way that balances all the interests. That's my hope. Okay. I'm not going to ask Mrs. Joseph to read this, but would you like me to read it again? No. Hearing no response. Then I would again call for a voice vote. Mrs. Denler? No. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mrs. Oaks?
Yes.
Mrs. Mayo?
No, and the reason I'm voting no is because this is not an agendized motion on the docket, and it's, in my view, a violation of the Brown Act.
Thank you. And Ms. Hanson votes yes. So motion carries 3-2-0. It's easier to do with a computer in front of me. Okay, so I believe we have a next step.